Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and we've got a guest today that I have been so excited to chat with because this is an entrepreneur that I think in so many ways lives out the ideals that we're all searching for as to why we started our business and how we started our business and how we want to not only run our businesses, but run and live our lives. I think she is such an inspiration in so many different ways, not only as a subject matter expert, but in the way that she shows up as a person and as an entrepreneur. So let me tell you all about her. Her name is Lori Hartke. Lori is the owner and president of ByteWize Inc. Lori is not your typical entrepreneur. She's a solo IT managed service provider who's also a technology educator and author specializing in highly effective technology and financial strategies for small businesses, one of which has actually changed my life and my businesses. So I'm excited for Lori to share so much of that here today. One unique aspect of her Arizona-based business is that she actually lives full-time on Maui, which she's going to share some of that with us here today. Lori is passionate about sharing her expertise. She teaches a class called How to Be a Super Successful Solo MSP through ITSP University, where she helps other IT managed service providers scale their business without needing to hire an army of employees, which, that's a spoiler alert, it's going to come back to lifestyle. So you'll definitely want to hear all of Lori's perspectives and stories and strategies here today. As a certified profit-first professional, Lori is passionate about helping business owners minimize their financial stress and maximize their profitability. At the heart of her business and teachings is a commitment to proactively contribute not only to her clients' financial success, but also to their emotional and physical well-being of being an entrepreneur through health, wealth, and happiness. We all need this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Lori Hartke. All right, Lori, that was one of my favorite intros ever, which just says how excited I am that you're here. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. I am really honored to be on your show.
Heck yeah. Obviously, so much good stuff we're going to get into today. But first things first, we've got to go beyond the bio. Who the heck is Lori? How did you start doing all these amazing things that you get to do today?
Well, I'm originally from Minnesota, so you might hear some oofdas or you betchas. But I moved to Arizona in my early 20s. I started, lived there for about 26 years, and I started my IT company in 2008. And then in 2013, we had an opportunity to move to Maui. So I learned how to operate my business remotely. And I even was winning some new business remotely. And I was Zooming before Zoom was a thing. And I was able to do things way before COVID even. So I wasn't really freaked out about COVID like a lot of my colleagues were. But on a personal note, I love to be outside. Try to walk every day. I've actually walked several half marathons and managed to make it through one full marathon. And then, I like to cook and garden and just really keep busy with a variety of projects. But I've also had a, real strong interest in business and making money or trying to figure out how to make money. And there was, unfortunately, that interest didn't really help my business become a money-making machine. And, like a lot of business owners, I struggled to pay myself a decent salary. And I never really had enough money to cover expenses consistently month after month. And I would shuffle money back and forth between my business and my personal account. And one year I apparently paid myself a little too much because the next year I had to give myself a $12,000 cut in pay, and when you think about that, that's like really that if I was working somewhere else, employed at a business and they did that to me, I would probably quit. So, And then the other thing I would do is I would play that 0% credit card game where I'd seek out 0% credit cards because I thought for sure, 12 to 18 months from now, I would have that money for sure. And, when it would come due, boy, I would struggle I would always pay it off, but it was a struggle. So that game got really old. And then in 2018, I heard about Profit First. I bought the book. I listened to it, but I didn't really do anything with it. And it wasn't until April of 2019 when I like, let me give this a try and see what happens. And within the first 4 months, I had a 0% card due, and I was able to pay it off in full, and I still had money left over. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. But the coolest thing came the following year. So about 12 months into Profit First, I was able, a year and a half, I was able to pay myself 6 figures for the first time ever. And that's when I'm like, I'm sold. I got to figure out a way to help others. And then I work closely with 2 other MSPs, and we've been doing this together for 6 years. And I helped them implement Profit First, and they started to see results. And then I'm like, okay, I got to help others. And so last year I became a certified Profit First professional. And, it's pretty cool that my love for business, finance, and tech kind of just all came full circle.
Yeah, I love that overview for so many reasons, Lori, but it is because it's really, you alluded to it right there at the end of your answer, which is it is a very unique intersection where all of these passions of yours have combined to create something that brings a lot of value to the world. And most importantly, and it's something I want to make sure we touch on here today, it contributes to the life that you want to live, which I think is so important. So listeners, I'm just going to call this out this early on in today's episode, is that this is the real life stuff. I mean, you just heard from Lori. Lori openly said that I think we need to talk about this more in the world of entrepreneurship, that just because your business can bring in revenue, it doesn't mean anything about your profitability. And it certainly doesn't mean anything about your ability to pay and provide for yourself. So Lori, so much of that we're going to go into today, but I think it's really important to call out that your love and passion for Profit First, which is something that I share with you, is what enabled your business to grow even further, which has enabled your business to serve more clients and do more good in the world. So I guess I want to start at the fundamentals of Profit First. For a lot of listeners who aren't aware of it, Lori, you and I are lucky that we found it, and you get to be the beacon of hope for people who haven't heard about it yet. What is Profit First? Why did it make such a big impact in your life and business?
Well, it's just a cash management system. So it's not like you have to understand, financials in it. You can, it brings clarity to your numbers, and you can make it as simple as you want it. But if you want to get the full benefits, you want to make sure that you're implementing it the right way. And it made a huge difference for me. I worked for 12 years. That's a long time to work and not get paid what you're worth. And, the stats are pretty staggering. There's like 33.3 million small businesses, which is any business that's 499 employees or less in the U.S., and 30% run break even, and the other 30% lose money. So, Profit First, it works for any size business in any industry, and it's a proven method. So I can't speak enough about it.
Yeah, which it's fun for me because we can actually talk about it not in theory, and not conceptually, but in practicality. Because when we layer on the conversation with your own business, which is called ByteWize, which for a lot of people, Lori, I'm going to ask for an overview from you about what an IT managed service provider company does. And then actually we'll start there, and then we'll get into layering these two topics together and how they really have lifted each other. So what is an IT managed service provider?
Well, managed services is where we take all aspects of a small business's network and technology, and we manage it for them. And that involves security and could be phones, and so we try to take the ease off of the business owner, and so that they can sleep at night and not worry about their technology failing. And that's kind of a little bit then where Profit First comes in too, because I know we all have had sleepless nights about our, making payroll, or, do we have enough to keep going month after month? And so that's how, for me, the two kind of intersected.
Yeah, I love that. Let's go down that path together, because you wrote something in your questionnaire as I was doing my research for today's episode that it resonated all too deeply with me, Lori, which is sometimes we have to rob Peter to pay Paul. And it's something that we all do with our business finances and our personal finances. Hopefully it's not something we all continue to do. Like for you and I, it changed through Profit First. But what did that look like? What did life look like under ByteWize when you didn't have that fundamental understanding? And then cross that bridge for us. What did it then look like? What does it look like under the Profit First methodology?
Yeah. Well, actually, when I teach my class, I have a graph. So I'm very transparent, and I show everybody my numbers, even how much I paid myself. And I show how I was all over the map. I was moving money. I thought for sure I'd have enough money in my business account to cover everything. And then 2 months later, I'd be like, oh crap, I'm running short again. So I'd move money, then I'd move it back. And that's how I had to operate. And then I implement Profit First, and my chart it's consistent because we get quarterly profit distributions. We also save for taxes, so you're able to make sure you have enough money in your accounts for taxes. And so it was night and day difference and I love to keep track of everything. And so that was beneficial. I had no idea I would be in this role. But having that information now has been valuable, and it just really truly paints a picture.
Yeah. And to that point, I'm glad that you brought up the one word that we can all unite in, that we grimace when we hear it, which is taxes. And I remember pre-Profit First, it was always, where am I going to pull that money from? Is it going to come from my personal savings? Is it going to come from my checking account? Is it going to come from my business checking account, which there was no such thing as an operating expenses account or any of those. Whereas now, you're right, by the end of the year, I already have in excess saved up for what my tax bill will be. Lori, what does that look like? Because you and I obviously use this in our businesses, but listeners may be thinking, you guys, what does this mean? What are you doing with this money? Where is it coming from? And how are you distributing it? What does that distribution look like for people who have never intentionally allocated and set aside money? Yeah.
So one of the core starting points is you create 5 bank accounts. You'll have one, which is your income account, and then you create one that's for profit, one that's for taxes, one that's for owner's pay, and then also for operating expense. And when you get into a rhythm, we establish a rhythm. So like on the 10th and 25th, you will take whatever money is in your income account, because that's all it is money coming into that account. And then we work with you to create an allocation percentage, and you start out very small, and it's very doable. And then you just, on the 10th and 25th, you're going to allocate money into those other various core bank accounts. And then, like I mentioned, every quarter you take half of what's in your profit account, and you get to take that as a distribution, and that's your bonus for all of the hard work and effort and risk and everything that you're doing in your business. And then we also allocate the quarterly for taxes, that you take some of that money out as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important place for us to interject into this conversation here, Lori, about how important for you it personally is. This is one of the reasons why I so deeply respect the work that you do, is that you're not just building businesses so that you give yourself a job. You live on Maui. You don't have a huge team, which as a fellow solopreneur for like 95% of my life, that's something that's so near and dear to my heart. Lori, what is it about the way that you structure your business? How much does your lifestyle play into your your mindset and your strategies around how you want to grow?
Well, over the 16 years that I've been in business, I kind of came to realize that I'm going to build a business that works for me. And I don't care. In our industry, in IT, we always are talking about how much revenue do you have? We never talk about like net profit. And if we do, in reality, that's really hard to compare to, just because you don't know how much people are taking out of the business for personal use and things like that. So you'd really have to dive into everybody's numbers. But I think that, what I ended up doing then is figuring out all of the things I didn't want. So I built my business on having my clients, for instance. I will only work with businesses that are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And I don't work weekends. I did. Don't get me wrong. I had some clients that were in the retail industry, and I was working all the time. And I'm like, what am I doing? This isn't, and I purposely didn't want to hire employees. I didn't want W-2. I used to be an IT manager, and I just didn't want to. I do have a part-time tech. I mean, I will seek out help when I need it. But I'm a big person on process and procedures as well. So implementing, some of this is taken a while, but it helps me build the life that I want. And I don't want to wait till I'm, retired and now I'm going to go and enjoy life. I want to enjoy life, every day.
Yeah, amen to that. I think it's such a powerful point that we can all embrace in our businesses. And listeners, I hope that this is the catalyst for you to sit down and embrace Lori's mindset for your own business and your own life, because ultimately none of us are on the planet to run a business. We are here to live a good life. Now, do I believe that entrepreneurship and business is the vehicle through which we can improve our lives and others' lives? Absolutely. But we have to do it in a way that also honors ourselves. And Lori, I think you're a living example of that. And I'm going to call one thing out very publicly. I want to congratulate you on, because I don't think we celebrate longevity enough in the world of entrepreneurship. 16 years of being in operation is no small feat. And it's something that I relate to. I started my first business in 2008 as well. I was a freshman in school, and I know how much I've personally grown and learned and developed along the way, which leads me to ask you this question, Lori, because I love picking on experienced heads like yours, what are some of those shifts? Because when I look back at my own journey, I come to think of the fact that I didn't know anything when I started. Whatever I thought I knew, I didn't. What are some of those things that in hindsight, you're just like, gosh, Lori, that's not the way it was, that now you can see clearly?
Well, I remember when I wanted to start my business, I was like, oh, this will just be great. In IT, they get paid big bucks, and how hard can it be? And I can work whenever I want, and I'll have all this, flexibility and freedom. And oh boy, that was so far from the truth. And so there's so many aspects of running a business, from getting your, like just even sales tax and getting that all figured out, and then domain names and, legal things. And there's so much to it. It blows your mind, really. And that's where, we do a lot of, at least for me, I love business, and I always have since I've been a kid, but I like, the whole, what we can offer and do for others. It's amazing. And if to not be profitable and get paid what you're worth, that's a big disconnect for me. And I feel like that has to change. And hoping, there's little baby steps people can take to implement profit first. And even if you just do that, and you're one step closer to being profitable, and making your, at the end, that's the other thing too, is, your exit strategy, and where are you taking this business? Are you going to sell it? Do you want to pass it on or merge with someone else? And you want to be profitable in order to get higher multiples when you go to sell. So there's so many reasons, to really dive in and be profitable. And so with Profit First, it simplifies the cash flow. It's a method, right? So it helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Lori, I'll tell you what, I think that you so deeply embrace one of our core values and missions here at the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast, which is these types of transparent, real entrepreneur conversations. Not that we're going to find in YouTube videos where it's all about, here's how I made $1 million in 24 hours. There's enough of that stuff. But I want to talk about, and you do talk so freely about those early trials and tribulations. And obviously so much of it leads to finding the light, which for both you and I, Profit First has been a big inflection point in our journeys. But clearly 16 years, you did something right up front, Lori, even when you didn't know what you were doing. Talk to us about some of those early strategies that we can just applaud 16 years ago, Lori, for not knowing what she didn't know, but still moving forward and providing value. I think so much of your professional career comes back to that. What were some of those early strategies that either intentionally or unintentionally worked out?
Well, I think one of the things is that's what I was attracted to be a managed service provider is it never felt good when I worked at a company when someone would have a problem. I'm from Minnesota. We want everybody to, be happy. And so when someone would have a problem, I'm like, oh gosh, let me help you. And that was how a lot of IT people would make money, is off of someone else's problems. And so the whole concept of managed services is, why don't we put tools in place that will help prevent problems? And once I grasped that idea, I was like, that's me. That's what I want to do. I want to help people prevent problems. And so that was pretty instrumental in early on when I decided to be an IT consultant. And so trying to just think of, like, things just happened in a way. So I can't pinpoint certain things. I've always, I guess one big thing is I'm big on education. I'm always trying to learn something new. Is there a better way to do things? How can I be as efficient as possible? Stuff like that has really helped out. Just having good values and morals, I guess, too.
Yeah, Lori, I think those things are incredibly important to call out. And they're things that may not look sexy in a YouTube video title or in a podcast episode title, but this is the real stuff that drives businesses forward. And the only reason why you're here talking about 16 years of entrepreneurial experience is because of these building blocks. So I really appreciate this open insight into what's helped you succeed, because it's something that we can all replicate. I actually saw a graphic. It went viral years ago where it said the 10 things we all have that contribute to success. And none of those things were about like hacks or strategies. It was about hard work, being on time, being of service to others. And I think those really are the fundamental building blocks of successful businesses, which you mentioned one of those things that we can all use to our advantage, which is technology. Lori, it's obviously near and dear to your heart. You're a technology educator and author. You also use technology in your businesses, of course. So share some light on that for people who may either be scared about technology, or on the flip side, actually, I want to throw this at you, is that some people, technology gets in their way because they become so obsessed with the millions of options with tech that they can't get out of their own way. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I've lived that too. That's one of our biggest problems in our industry is we love shiny new tools and gadgets. And, I have a room full of monitors and different things. And so I've always had that interest. I like to see what makes things tick, taking a computer apart, putting it back together, stuff like that. But there's from a technology point of view, like, I'm not real big on social media. I see so many people get consumed like with Facebook and stuff. And I don't have that kind of time. I never really get involved with it. Kind of the Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week. I read that book early on when I started my business, and that kind of always resonated with me. I'll just keep asking people questions of what's going on in the world, and I learn a lot that way. So I don't really spend a whole lot of time getting consumed with the everything that's going on in the world, to an extent. But so when it comes to technology, it is hard. And I've learned to vet vendors and their products pretty well. So that's one of my key things that I teach is, and even vetting your clients and making sure it's a good fit. Because in the beginning, I would take anybody that was willing to write me a check. So I was working in the residential sector, and I couldn't charge somebody really what I should have been charging them. And so it wasn't a good fit. So those are all of those hard lessons that I had learned over all those years. But the technology can be key, and not trying to overdo it and feel like I struggle with it too, to be honest, trying to find that perfect task tool, to help me be organized better. I'm always thinking there's got to be a better product, because it seems like not one product can do everything I ever wanted to do. So that is hard.
Yeah, Lori, it's funny. I so deeply resonate with that. I don't know if you're familiar with AppSumo. Have you ever visited AppSumo?
No.
Okay, so appsumo.com is a website of all the latest SaaS tools, software as a service tools, and they're all lifetime deals. And so for me, once a week, I'm just scrolling through AppSumo for the very reason that you stated, which is there's got to be one tool that does all these things that I need it to. And yeah, quickly you realize there's not ever one tool that does everything that we need it to. And I think it brings about a very important entrepreneurial lesson. Lori, here on this show, we talk so much about entrepreneurial maturity, and I always make the argument that entrepreneurial maturity does not come with age. It comes from experience. And here you are with 16 years of entrepreneurial experience. And to me, your entrepreneurial maturity shines through in the fact that you just alluded to one of my favorite quotes, which is ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. And for you, that could mean consuming all the latest shiny objects, or it could mean emotional well-being, physical well-being. I know that all of these things are incredibly important to you. So I'd love for you to offer some of that guidance in entrepreneurial maturity to our listeners here. What is it that you use to focus on your emotional well-being, to use that as an example? Because it is so easy to get bogged down, and this is not an easy journey for us. So shed some light onto that for us.
Well, for sure. I've had a lot of ups and downs. I mean, there's times where it's like, what am I doing? I not get paid a whole lot. This was before Profit First. And so when I would feel like that, I'm like, I should just quit and just go work for somebody else. But I knew that's not what I really wanted. So yeah, it's a difficult journey. And I can't help but kind of go back to Profit First, because it really has given me really a sense of control. I feel more confident than ever now. So the emotional side of running a business, and then even now it's like, I'm getting up there in age, but I don't really ever want to retire. But what does the last 10, 20 years look like? And I can't imagine selling my MSP. How do I let go? So there's all of the emotions can be, great, as well as, struggling. So,
yeah. And I think that's important to call out. We had Melissa Hoffman on the show earlier this year where she so eloquently said it: new level, new devil. It's not that your problems go away when you mature in business and you reach new success levels in business. It just becomes different. We always face those things. So acknowledging that they happen as beginners, but also 16 years into the journey when, Lori, you've built an incredibly successful business. You know how to manage your cash. There are other considerations. So I love the fact that you're out there. I'm going to give you public praise here for helping other business owners and IT managed professionals as well. Lori, what does that look like for listeners who are sitting here going, gosh, Brian and Lori, and now I'm going to have to read this Profit First book and start understanding that. But what does it actually look like to work with someone like you who is a certified Profit First professional?
Yeah, we have a framework established to kind of hold your hand through the process, and you'll see immediate results. And we start out, like I mentioned, getting those bank accounts established, and then we do an instant assessment. We set up a rhythm, for your allocations. Like typically it's the 10th and 25th, but some businesses we need to, so it's a little bit of a customized program. And then, some of it is just being there then to review things on a quarterly basis, and eventually you get things set up and humming along, and you almost don't think about it, but you'll eventually get to the point where you will feel really confident in just looking at your bank account numbers, and maybe being able to create or be able to make decisions by looking at your bank accounts. One of our sayings is, when in doubt, create an account. So for instance, maybe you want to really focus on doing some more marketing, and you want to put some money towards a marketing effort, an ongoing effort. And what we would do then is take a percentage, we would decrease some of the money that goes into the general OPEX account, and we create another marketing account. And so we put that money towards that, and now you can see how much money you have. So it's sort of like budgeting, but it's just it actually gives you just a quick view by looking at a bank account, maybe on your mobile app or something like that. So there's all kinds of little things we go through, exercises like we call it the monthly nut exercise, where we look at all of your expenses and think about things. For instance, for me, I had answering service that was 24/7. It was $125 a month. It wasn't that expensive, but it was it wasn't used that much, but it was a requirement from one of my clients. So, but I asked around in our IT community, and someone made a recommendation to another company, went with the new company, and it saved me $100 a month. And that's one of the other things too, where you can, like for me, I was able to realize that getting rid of $500 worth of expenses was better than getting a new $1,000 a month client, because it was less effort. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, Lori. I'm glad you said it the way that you said it, because you said it's actually not budgeting, which I totally agree with you on. It doesn't feel like budgeting. The adjective or the verb that I'll replace it with is, it actually feels like building. You gave that real life example of wanting to have a marketing budget. It's something that I've always done for years now, since I found Profit First. Is I have a growth fund, and 10% of every dollar goes straight into the growth fund. And it's funny, because if I look back in my early 20s, I used to dread logging into my financial accounts, my bank accounts and my credit cards, because I was like, all right, when does this become due? And when's the money going to hit my account? And it was always this balancing act. Whereas now I log in and I say, holy cow, 10% adds up quick. Like, my growth fund has money that I can actually make moves. I can further invest in my business to get further growth. So it is building rather than budgeting. And I absolutely love your perspective on that, Lori, because it's super actionable for us.
Yeah.
Along those lines, as someone who's listened to this show before, I always get excited on how I end these sessions, because I have no idea which direction you're going to take it in, but that's your one takeaway, the one action. I can imagine that it'll be somewhat profit first oriented, but if you've got some words of wisdom, even beyond just that, if you want to do two for us here today, one from a profit first perspective, but one just on an entrepreneurial perspective, what's that takeaway from listeners? For people who tuned in today saying, gosh, Lori's got a great perspective on all this, and I want to start replicating some of this in my business, in my life. What's that takeaway?
All right. Well, I'll start with the profit first. So I do have a little, it's a little 4-step process that everybody can, regardless of what industry you're in, you can just open up one additional account, because you're going to have your main account, so you're going to create one new account, name it Profit. And then just start by putting 1% of every deposit into that Profit account. And then at the end of the first quarter, take 50% of what's in that Profit account and go celebrate, and pat yourself on the back for all of the hard work that you've done. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to kind of wash, rinse, and repeat. Only the next quarter, increase it to 2%. And then just keep doing that for a few quarters. And then from I guess an entrepreneurial, hang in there, and I guess the other big thing is just seek out others in your industry. Like the two guys that I work with, we're actually competitors, really. And here we try to mirror our businesses like each other. If any one of us want to go on vacation, we cover for each other. So that's a really good way to find additional help and not feel like you're alone. So I think that's kind of huge.
Yeah, massive advice there. Super actionable for all of us, especially that profit first takeaway. Lori, I love that. Pay ourselves. That is a huge action based on logic and an intentional strategy. I think that's so much of what you revealed for us here today. So I also know that listeners, they've got a lot of homework and they're probably going to want to go deeper into the wonderful world of all the great work that you do. So drop those links on us. Where can listeners go to find out more about all the great stuff that Lori, you're up to with both of your businesses and all the great work that you're doing to help others?
Well, LinkedIn would probably be the best because I represent both companies there. Otherwise, you can reach out to Lori at profitfirstformsps.com. And if anybody's interested, you can also sign up for the academy that I'm building out that is at profitfirstformsps.com. And you can use the number 4 or FORE.
Yes, listeners, you know the drill. We are making it as easy as possible for you to find Lori's businesses online, as well as a link to her personal LinkedIn if you want to reach out to her one-on-one and thank her for coming on the show, or heck, get her super knowledgeable and experienced help for your own business. So much wisdom inside of all the things that Lori's putting into the world. And what I really love and appreciate is how much of it is rooted in service and in value and in building not just businesses, but lives that we all love to live. So Lori, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Brian, thank you. And really, truly, thank you for everything you do.